Have you ever thought about buying two 40-foot high cube shipping containers, cutting out the sidewalls and slapping them together? It's a little bit more difficult than that. But in this video, I'm going to show you our DIY Weldless Double Wide Kit that allows you to make a 16-foot wide and 40-foot long shipping container. Stay tuned. Hope you learned something. Our customer purchased two of these fully engineered structures. And this is a perfect opportunity for us to revise our double wide header kit design, and it now fits on a 4-foot pallet, which means it's available for you to purchase. Container selection is huge when you're looking to spend a lot of money on a container project. This here we have one-time use condition, so don't grab an old, used, junky, rusty shipping container. These might come with the odd dent, such as this, but that we can just select that as the wall that we're removing. Another thing that we got lucky with here is these 40s do not have fork pockets. Fork pockets actually ruin the structural integrity of the floor. The walls, a lot of people don't realize, are what give the entire structure to the shipping container. So when we remove that wall, the roof wants to sag, but so does the floor. To mitigate the floor sag, we actually picked up some 5x3 angle iron, 1/4 inch thick, and we're gonna be welding that inside the C-channel, and that's gonna stick out about 1.25 inches. And once this is all together, we're gonna be able to lay in some flat bar right in between there, weld that up, and we're gonna have a nice seamless transition between the two shipping containers inside this double wide. So we're just outside here and prepping these 5x3 angle irons, and we're giving it about a 3/16 chamfer. That's gonna sit nicely in the radius of the C-channel along the bottom structural member of these shipping containers. So we're doing this, we're gonna get the containers lifted up inside of our shop, and then we're gonna tack or stitch weld these things in.
Before welding on the shipping containers, we always grind off the paint so we don't get any of the smoke stains burning up the wall.
So we're done just in the nick of time here. Our spray foamers are gonna be here Saturday morning. It is Friday afternoon, and that's important because we don't want the harmful chemicals in this shop while people are working. You wanna have at least an hour before it can even be occupied, and then 24 hours before you're living inside of a space. And so that'll give 2 days in this shop to air out, but they're gonna be getting the undersides of these containers done first, and then we're gonna put them together. Okay, so we're just getting jigged up to work here. We got a whole pile of these to put together before we get in the skyjack and start working on top of the containers. So what we don't want is these things to grow. They cannot be long, they can be short, but what we're gonna do is there's 2 holes right on the end here and these corrugations that go inside the Z profile. I just wanna make sure that it is perfectly flush, and I'm gonna rivet those 2 in. I'm gonna do the same thing over here, and then the middle hunk of corrugation, we should be able to just jam in there because they're springy this way. They're super strong straight up and down. And then we'll get all the other rivets in and have her locked in place, nice and solid. When you're working your way across the roof of this container, there's a lot of rogue welds from China, and those will actually get in the way of keeping this thing nice and plumb at the joints. So you gotta make sure you grind those off. And then after you do that, grab some zinc spray. So this is not just regular primer, this is zinc. So it's a sacrificial layer, and make sure you squirt that on. Nailed it. So this here is our first attempt at this new kit. We did figure out that it is extremely important at the seams here to make sure that all of our rivet holes are lining up, and that's gonna ensure that our seams are nice and flush and this thing stays super straight the whole 40 feet of this double wide kit. These 4-foot pieces are straighter than our old 10-foot give or take double wide kit. So I'm really excited that it worked as well as it did in the 3D model, almost better. And we've got 3 more of these to do, so let's get to work. So we really noticed when you get started with this, your first 2 to 3 pieces, you just want to loosely fit them together. You might have to drill out some rivets, but just get it started. Once you get past, 10, 12 feet, it just goes super smooth the whole rest of the way. Don't overthink it at the beginning. Don't think that nothing fits and nothing lines up, because it just magically works itself out and then it's just smooth sailing afterwards. After the first one went together so well, we actually want to utilize more sealant this time. So we've been applying a layer of silicone along the tubing. We're doing it between the layers of the Z and the J, and that's going to squeeze that and make sure that any of the water goes to the drain holes that'll be on the J piece. And then lastly, we're going to put some clear silicone just between these flat flanges here, so that if any snow is built up on top of the roof of these containers, it doesn't get between these layers and into this center cavity here. If you're getting value from this video, please help us out and give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. I want to talk about the hardware that we've selected here. So we have structural rivets. These things are way harder to pull on our rivet gun, and you'll definitely want a rivet gun. You don't want to be pulling those by hand. And then we have our 5/16 flange head thread cutting bolt. So this thing here, after we drill the hole, it cuts its own threads into the 60mm tubing. So we're just going to finish off this header here, and then the next step is to rip these containers out of the shop and drop these sidewalls. Now that we have this header installed, I'm going to break down all of the components for you once more. We have these structural corrugations. This is the meat and potatoes of this header, so that actually allows you to span that full 40 feet. And then we call it the Z profile, which is the one that actually securely fastens right into the shipping container. But that fastens also right through what we call the J. And so that actually encompasses the corrugations. And then we have a double layer where we're going into the top 60mm tubing. And we make sure that we are overlapping these seams so that we don't get differential sagging between the joints. And so the ridge cap starts off with a 2-foot piece, and so does the J. And then the Z profiles are basically 4-foot pieces. And then that makes sure that this full 40-foot member spans that full 40-foot distance. There are a few secrets to dropping these corrugation panels. We've tried a few different ways of cutting them. We've tried oxyacetylene torches, which is not good, plasma cutters, which is a little bit better, but it really blasts that caulking all over the inside of the container. What we always revert back to is the good old angle grinder with a 6-inch cutoff wheel, nice and thin disc, and just work your way across. And another super important note is that we leave tabs down at the bottom of the corrugations to ensure it hinges outwards and doesn't slide back inwards and take out your ladder. And then we just leave a couple little tabs up at the top. We cut those and bombs away. Woo! That was fun. I'm freezing. I'm out of here. To connect these two 40-foots together to make a double wide, we use these high-capacity bridge fittings. It is a very rugged, secured connection that can be used for fully loaded shipping containers, and so we know that it's strong enough in this instance here. But how these things work is there's a little pin that locks them in, so you lift that up and twist, and then you just grab yourself a pry bar or something and you just crank on it, and that brings the two containers together. They're great at self-aligning things, so if your containers aren't lined up perfectly, this is the tool for the job. We're gonna try bringing the other end together a bit more before I finish these up. It feels almost like I'm pulling that end as well, and I was getting pretty torquey on the end of here. I see I bent it and I took one to the face, so hopefully that helps. Otherwise, maybe we should be changing this plywood out for something slipperier. In the comments, a lot of people say, oh, you got really nice forklifts. It looks so easy for you and your big team. But here we're using the tools that you should have if you're gonna take on this type of project. So we're just going to use this come along here to bring the two containers together before we cinch up the high capacity bridge fittings. In bringing the bottom together, this came together nicely, so it looks like it's going to be relatively simple to get this connected in direction. All right, there you have it. We have the first container together. Let's get to the fun part of this double wide kit. Let's get that header all seamed up and get inside and seal up all the light that's intruding in here and get these things to be a nice, clean, crisp, 16-foot wide envelope. You guys installing this ridge cap went extremely well. You just gotta make sure everything's in alignment before you rivet it together. You want the rivets kind of loose. That's the signal to tell you that you got it in the right spot and you're not either spreading these two headers apart or pinching them together. You can utilize a Bessie clamp or we used a 4-foot 2x4 to spread them apart. Both of those worked wonderfully. I'm sure there's better tools than that. So let's just finish this one up and move on to the next thing. This 3-inch wide, 1/8 thick flat bar laid between these C-channels perfectly. There's hardly any lip there, if any at all. And we've stitch weld that in place for now. Not certain if we're gonna fully seam weld that or caulk it in. A lot of times when you fully seam weld things in shipping containers, that added heat really causes stuff to bow and bend on you. So you gotta be careful there, especially on the thin sidewalls of containers. They're only 1.6 millimeters thick. A lot of people think these things are way thicker and way stronger than they are, but the walls, they're really just like a piece of paper. They're strong straight up and down, but they can really push and bend sideways on you. So you gotta be careful there when you're adding heat anytime to shipping containers. That's why we always elect for weldless bolt-on kits. The double wide kit comes with end caps. These cover the corner posts, and we installed those by drilling holes and then riveting that right into the corner posts. So what we did is we steel studded with 1 5/8 steel stud all the way around this, and that leaves a nice cavity for the spray foam to get in there. Same thing on the door end. We actually have those same end caps, and then we were able to frame right from this wall flashing kit around and back to the other wall flashing kit on the other set of doors. So it's gonna look like a bit of a pillar here. That's gonna get spray foam insulation all around that and be as good a seal as we possibly can get out of these active shipping container doors. So this here is our new strut framing method. We're trying something different, trying to solve a lot of our problems. So we got a baseboard. This is a strut channel that runs the whole base of the container, and then we use a crown mold, so to speak. So we actually have an upper on the sides, and then that starts the roof too. So we got 2 strut channels running the whole 40 feet up there. And what we can do is we can use our strut strapping and the laser precision cut length of those pieces and just continually work down the container. And then we can ensure that the spaces between the strut channels is always parallel to each other. And then up above me, we actually have the strut channel cut at 16 feet all the way across here, and we've pinned it to the top 60 millimeter tubing. Hopefully once that's all tied into the spray foam, that locks that roof nice and solid, because when you get up on those roof corrugations and you jump, it's springy, the whole roof moves on you. But once that spray foam, she's a solid slab of foam and steel in there, and that really helps that snow load in the winter time shed that water to the sides and then off your roof of your container. But what is recommended is taking 2x4s, or even better, steel studs, and actually building a 1.5 12 pitch roof on top of here. That is gonna make sure that all of that water and sitting snow is going to shed off the sides just like a regular home. And then if you built that, you want gable venting. You wanna make sure that this is all vented so that if any humidity does get inside of there, it gets out. Spray foam insulation is the most effective way to insulate shipping containers. You get the most R value per inch, and space is very valuable inside these narrow structures. When you're looking to build a container home, you typically want to go 2 inches of foam on the walls and 3 inches in the ceiling. That's going to give you R14 and R20. And then with the floor, there's a couple different methods. One, you can spray foam underneath the shipping container, but if you're in a cold region, cold actually transfers through the screws and through the center channel, and you're gonna have a super cold floor. So another method to cure that is you take 2 inches of rigid foam and you go right across the floor, and you should do that before you frame. A little trick there is you run your foam all the way to the inside corrugations, and then your tongue and groove plywood, your subfloor that you put on top of that, should be tucked back about 1 inch. And that allows the foam to go all the way around that bottom track and touch the other foam, and now you got a perfect vapor barrier all the way around this thing. If you're looking for a more residential finish on the inside of your shipping container build, you'll want to steel stud frame this thing. And you can use Container Modification World steel stud brackets. There's the composite bracket that doesn't allow any thermal bridging. This is great for northern climates, or there's the aluminum one. This is a bit more rugged, so if you step on it, you're not going to break it, but it does allow that thermal bridging. So southern United States, go ahead, use this thing. So no matter which framing method you choose, as long as you're using the Container Modification World brackets, the foam is going to be a perfect envelope all the way around your studs. None of them are going to be transferring cold through them, becoming a thermal bridge, and you're going to be set with a nice, healthy, clean envelope for your container home. One other thing I want to show you is that we cut the corrugations out as much as we possibly could. So this corner post is tucked back as far as it could be, but if you can navigate this in your floor plan and leave a couple of corrugations, say 2 feet here, that's really going to help gusset this corner and make sure that the container structure remains. Don't worry about the cost of spray foam based off of how much it costs to insulate with a competing product like fiberglass or mineral wool insulation. Spray foam is your structure. It's the glue that holds everything together and it stops all the drafts from coming through here. So it's airtight, it's your vapor barrier, and it's your R value. It is a must when you're looking to do a container home. We're using truss core this time, so we're changing it up. We've typically used the Reline brand. Truss core is thicker, and so we're spanning 3 corrugations, and we're hoping that that extra 1/8 of an inch thickness and the truss webbing inside of it is gonna help us span that distance. I've tried it out once before and it worked great at home, so I have no doubts that 33 on center is gonna work perfectly. This is what it feels like to be inside a double wide shipping container, and it is so nice with this framing method and the white interior wall panels. What's really difficult about building double wide shipping containers is dealing with the shipping container doors. And if you're trying to keep these doors active, that's just a whole nother level of difficulty. And that's why a lot of these bolt-on components are so vital to this type of modification. If you can take away so much of the thinking with things like our door flashing kits and wall flashing kits, our doors and our framing systems, it actually takes this project that's outside of your reach and brings it back into something that you can succeed at. We were able to use our side lift on the one side and our forklift on the other, lift this thing up, and then the semi can just back right under it. This thing is sitting nice in the center, and what's really cool about this is that it wasn't much more money to deliver one wide load container than 2 containers individually, and that saves the customer a ton of work on site. My least favorite part of these double wide container modifications is saying goodbye to them. Every time I build them, I get jealous and I want to keep them for myself. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to build ourselves our own double wide unit, and we're going to try out a few different methods. Maybe we'll stuff an LVL inside of this header next time instead of using those corrugations. That might make it a little bit easier, might make it harder. We're not sure, but that's what we do here at the Container Guy. We continuously iterate. And if you want to follow us along, please help us out. Subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications. And as always, check us out at TCG.ca. Hope you learned something.